Make it in Appalachia.
Make it in Appalachia.
Decarbonize Appalachian industry.
Redevelop it in Appalachia.
Grow it? Yes, grow it in Appalachia.
Who owns it in Appalachia?
Reuse it in Appalachia.
Invest it in Appalachia.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Molly Updegrove with Reimagine Appalachia, and I'll be helping facilitate today's summit that we're really excited about. I'm actually, bear with me while I get my screen share back up. While I go over some logistics, we want to hear from all of you. Could someone let me know well, it looks like it's taking a second to load. How does this look so far?
The bars went away.
Okay, awesome.
Although we
So,
can
yeah,
see your like.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Great, perfect.
Yeah, so if any of you have not done a Mentimeter poll before, we should have the link dropped in the chat for you now. We would just want to hear from a couple of you or from all of you before we get started. You can also participate in the Mentimeter poll by going to menti.com and putting the code in that's at the top of the screen here. So first, we just want to see where folks are joining us from. There, it's fun. The pins are starting to pop up now. So I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping items while we keep the Mentimeter poll running. So this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. With all of our events, we will send out not only a link to the recording of our main sessions, but also all of our breakout sessions. So if you can't make it into one breakout session, don't worry. We will give you access to the notes and recording for the other breakout sessions. And we also do have closed captioning available to, I think Liam is dropping in the chat probably the instructions, but you should be able to just press the captions button that's at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, or press the three little dots and activate enable closed captioning from there. So we have the Mentimeter poll up already. We also just wanted to reiterate that this summit today is really meant to be very discussion based and interactive. So hopefully you all are participating in the poll now, and you'll continue to participate in our breakout sessions by providing your input and feedback. With that in mind, also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat right now while we're still going through the poll. We would love for people to connect. I'm gonna switch us, I believe, to the next slide, just so we have time to get through them all. This is neat to see where everyone's joining us from. So our next question is, what type of stakeholder are you representing today? So feel free to put in, and if you do mark yourself as other, please put that in the chat so we know, what organization you're representing. I think that I covered most of the logistics that I wanted to cover. Just want to thank everyone again for being here. Amanda, who I'll be passing it to in a couple minutes, is going to, do a little bit more scene setting and let you all know why we're here. This is really the culmination of our summer manufacturing series, which a lot of you were a part of, where we had listening sessions and then report releases. And now today we were really excited to explore our draft manufacturing action plan. So lots of people are putting others, so hopefully those are coming in the chat. I am not staying caught up with the chat at the moment with the screen share up, but it's great. So many folks are participating. Also, if you saw the video that was playing as you came in, shout out to Blaze and Liam from our team. They actually made the song and video, so they were really talented, and I was very shocked by their creativity because I am really not creative in that way. So we will be sharing that video on our social media and in follow-up, so hopefully you'll check it out again and give it some love and attention. All right, I'm gonna switch us to the next question, which this is really like the first example of how we really want to have people discussing and get everyone's feedback and have this be interactive today. So we wanted to ask this question before we go into hearing from our first speakers today, and that is, what are the most important principles and values to you when it comes to growing manufacturing in Appalachia? So these, as you can see, are coming up as a word cloud. And if people start putting the same answers, actually, you'll see one of the words become larger. And that just means that a lot of people want that. So lots of great responses already showing up. Sustainability, worker-centered, local. I love that. Environmentally conscious, circular. Someone put local, local, local. Local jobs. This is exciting. It's always so fun to see them coming in. So as our speakers are discussing, their insights, feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat. We're not certain yet how much time we will have for a Q&A at the end of our panels. However, we will have Mentimeter polls, and we will have lots of room for discussion in the breakout sessions. So if you have comments or questions that don't get addressed in the chat, even we will try to, but if something doesn't get addressed, definitely bring it up in your breakout session because there will be plenty of space to talk about it there. This is awesome. Lots of people putting jobs or worker-centered, labor, local. This is becoming one of the largest word clouds we've had, so that's exciting. And I'll probably give this one just another couple of seconds, and then we will switch to one last question before we kick it off to our first panel. So I know a lot of folks probably have joined since I went over some of this. Just an FYI, we will be sharing a link to the recording of our main session, as well as the links to the recordings of our breakout sessions. So yeah, don't worry about missing anything. If you're in one breakout room, but you wanted to hear what was going on in another, we'll make sure that you get to see the notes and view the recording if you choose. And please also introduce yourself in the chat as we're getting started today. All right, I'm going to switch us to our last slide for now, but we will be doing more Mentimeter polls. So this question is, what should investors know about Appalachia? And we'll just give folks a couple minutes to type in some responses. Here they come. Awesome. So a couple on workers and the workforce. Oh, I love the kind. Potential for growth, great infrastructure, community oriented. A lot of people must be writing in the skilled workforce, which I love. Community oriented. Oh, I'm excited about the manufacturing is growing and the manufacturing is strong. We will definitely hear about some of that in our first panel today. And apologies if I'm missing any questions or comments in the chat. I will catch up with them in just a moment when I stop screen sharing. I'm going to leave this one up for just probably 30 more seconds, and then we'll be moving on. I know I've mentioned the breakout sessions a couple of times. We will be dropping a link, if not already dropped, to our program or agenda. Feel free to look at what our breakout sessions are going to be in case you want to like pre-choose which one you'll want to join. Whenever we do open up breakout sessions, we will definitely help people get to the breakout room they want to be in. So yeah, no worries if you're worried about getting into the right breakout room. We'll get you there. Alrighty, these are really beautiful word clouds. I am so excited to be able to share these with everyone afterwards. And we'll come back to a couple more questions later in the summit. But I think for now, I am going to stop my screen share and pass it to Amanda Woodrum from our team to really get us started.
Thanks, Molly. So I am going to start with why are we here today? What do we hope to accomplish? The Coalition to Reimagine Appalachia believes that with the right resources, focus, and strategies, the Ohio River Valley of Appalachia, better known as coal country, can be transformed into a modern manufacturing hub. This is the key to creating jobs equivalent to those lost in the coal industry. Today is the culmination of several years of work, listening sessions, research, facilitated discussions with a wide range of stakeholders, ranging from manufacturing experts, economic development groups, organized labor, community leaders, and others, working to answer the following questions. What are the products of the future, the growing market for which Appalachia can realistically become a hub? And as we grow manufacturing in the region, how do we ensure the future of manufacturing is more sustainable and equitable? Taking all that we have learned from working with you all thus far, we have now put together a draft manufacturing action plan for Appalachia. And we will be sharing with you all that in the chat. Our time together today is designed around securing your expertise and input in order to further develop this action plan. Our first session of the day, we will, one, explore a vision for Appalachia's energy and manufacturing sector, highlight Appalachia's historic and existing strength in manufacturing, as well as the region's many manufacturing related assets, all of which lay a solid foundation for achieving our collective vision. We will also discuss the work we need to do and the region's collective story we need to be telling in order to help drive both public and private investment into the region. And that's what we will need to get us from where we are to where we want to go. Later on today, we will also have a panel of manufacturing leaders, both locally and nationally, to share their thoughts on the more general work we need to do in order to achieve our ultimate vision. What is our roadmap for getting from here to there, or blueprint? But throughout the day, and in recognition that really everyone here is an expert in their own way, we will have you all participate in more Mentimeter survey questions, as well as facilitated breakout discussions across a wide range of topics in order to draw out your expertise. So please put your thinking caps on and roll up your sleeves. And then following today, we will gather all those Mentimeter results, the panel transcripts, and notes from those facilitated breakout discussions. And we will use all that information to update the draft Appalachian Manufacturing Action Plan. Then we will recirculate the draft to anyone willing and able to review it and to provide final input. And so finally, we then plan to secure, hopefully, what will be a wide range of stakeholder endorsements from the region's community, labor, business, faith, environmental, economic, local government leaders, and organizations. And we also toying with the idea of putting together an Appalachian Manufacturing Advisory Board to help keep the momentum going and keep the work moving forward. Okay, so one final thought. No individual can achieve a bold vision for the region, but if we all work together across geographical lines and stakeholder groups, to find common ground and create a collective vision. We can combine our collective leverage, our collective power, and our efforts to achieve common goals and transform the region into a hub for modern manufacturing and ultimately leaders of the new energy economy. Okay. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Tom Reed, the Director of Communications and Community Outreach for Catalyst Connection. They are a manufacturing extension partnership based in the Pittsburgh area. They secured a large grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission to build a network of manufacturing extension partnerships across the region, working together to achieve big things for energy and manufacturing in the region. And as well, it also supports the manufacturing work of Reimagine Appalachia. So, Tom.
All right. So yeah, thank you, Amanda. Excited to be here today and talk with you all about manufacturing and our local regional manufacturing's role in the new energy and the future of energy. As Amanda said, I work for Catalyst Connection. We're a manufacturing extension partnership that supports Southwestern Pennsylvania. The MEP network goes across the entire United States. So there are centers like Catalyst Connection everywhere. And we work to support manufacturers, small, medium-sized manufacturers. Catalyst Connection has been around for more than 35 years. And we look for a variety of ways to help manufacturers with their processes, their people, helping them with to be leaner, more productive, have higher quality standards, just be more competitive on a global market so that they can stay in business, hire local workers, pay taxes, and be a good representative of the community. And so when we do that, when Catalyst Connection does that, we also look for other sources of grant funds or other partners that we can work with that may help to expand our reach and our impact and help that we can do for manufacturers. And one of the areas that we have seen over the last decade or more is on new opportunities in energy that our local manufacturers should be taking part in, should be key driver. There are a lot of energy sources that have been in this region, and as Amanda reflected, the coal deposits that are in Appalachia were a rich source of energy that brought a lot of manufacturing and a lot of opportunities here. But we know that things have evolved, and there are many sources of energy here, and certainly even those that maybe aren't centered here, the manufacturers in our region can be a key part of that. So we did apply for several grants around energy, and one of the largest was the Arise grant that we put under our program, Energy and Manufacturing in Appalachia. And so we have partnered with 10 other MEP centers like ourselves and with Reimagine Appalachia. And the intention is to we cover 156 counties of 5 states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, New York, and Maryland. And so the goal of that grant is to do 2 things. One is to help small, medium-sized manufacturers to do more work in energy supply chains. And we don't really pick a favorite. We don't have a horse to win. We kind of are supporting all the energy fields, but we do. It makes sense that our manufacturers are going to invest and work in those supply chains that are being successful, that are growing, and certainly a lot of the sustainable and renewable energy sources have been where a lot of the opportunities are. And so we like to support that. The other aspect of our grant is to help any manufacturer, whether they're in an energy supply chain or not, to be more energy efficient. So we have resources. We have a mini grant program where any company could get up to $10,000 to help them on that route. So that's our goal, is we want companies to be more efficient. We want them to be working in energy. We want them to be aware of the opportunities. And something more recently that we have done and I will share, I think I shared the link early on and I just shared it again, that we have started creating energy supply chain reports about each energy source that's out there. And sometimes we have more than one under a single energy source. But these reports really help to break down what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, what are the ways that a manufacturer can get involved in these energy supply chains. And when we say supply chain, that could be solar, wind, natural gas, those things, but it also could be electric grid products. It could be circular plastics. It can be, products that are key to this energy growth and revolution. So we're excited to be a part of all of that. We think that the region's manufacturers are poised and have the skill set to be a part of these growing opportunities. And that's where we are here to do that. And so hopefully that helps get everybody on the right mindset. And I'm happy to answer any questions as we go on how we can continue to do that.
Okay, back to me. So we will now turn to Reimagine Appalachia's Senior Fellow, Wendy Patton, and our Sustainable Manufacturing Analyst, Vikash Gupta. We heard from Tom a little bit about where we want to go. So let's back up a second to get the existing lay of the land. What are Appalachia's strengths and assets that lay the foundation for where we are now? And how do those strengths and assets play into or connect to the clean economy and clean tech products and some of those growing markets that Tom referred to? Wendy and Bakash, the floor is yours.
We appreciate your time today. This is a little bit of a long story map, but it tells our story. North Central Appalachia is built for the clean economy. It is evolving into the economy of the future. Rich deposits of coal provided the energy that fueled the rise of basic manufacturing industries in the United States. North Central Appalachia led the nation in basic industries, producing the metals, machinery, brick, glass, rubber, cement, plastics, and more. As early as the 1920s, jobs in coal mining were already declining, but manufacturing remained strong. This does not mean deindustrialization did not affect the region. It did. But we found the share of manufacturing employment in North Central Appalachia is higher than typical for the nation today. Reimagine Appalachia focuses on the 210 counties of 6 states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, New York, and Maryland, that are under the jurisdiction of the Appalachian Regional Commission, shown in dark green on this map. We analyzed the manufacturing sector of the region using the location quotient, an economic formula that compares the share of employment in a particular industry within a region with the share of employment in that industry in a larger region, like in the nation. A location quotient of 1 indicates the share of jobs in an industry in the region is average. A location quotient of 2 indicates employment is twice as concentrated. Higher location quotients indicate local specialization and the presence of key industrial assets that can foster the growth of new industries. We first analyzed the Appalachian counties in the 4 states of the Ohio River Valley that included the coal country of Appalachia. This graphic shows how over the past quarter century, the share of manufacturing employment across these 4 industrial states of North Central Appalachia was about a third more concentrated than average. In Ohio and Kentucky, it was 50% more concentrated over time. The historic manufacturing base shaped essential assets for the future. the skilled workforce, mature supply chains, dense transportation networks, access to major markets, universities, technical training schools, and centers of research and development. This industrial foundation positions the region to play a vital role in the emerging clean tech economy, generating new employment opportunities. Now, this chart gives a 30,000-foot overview of the manufacturing economy of the 210 Appalachian counties in the six-state region. The region's concentration of jobs in consumer products, that's NICS code 31, is about the same as in the nation. It is much higher in the production of building and construction materials. That's NICS code 32, and NICS means North American Industrial Classification System. So much more concentrated in building and construction materials, as well as in metals and durable goods. A more granular analysis shows strength in selected industries. In this chart, we looked at industries defined by the three-digit NICS codes. Look at primary metals, wood products, and plastics at the top. There is a great concentration of jobs in these sectors compared to the nation in north central Appalachia. Of the 21 manufacturing industries analyzed, the Appalachian counties have an average or higher share of employment in 14 manufacturing industries. And here's how those sectors are evolving into the clean tech industries of the future. New investment has maintained the region's strength in metal production, fabrication, and machinery manufacturing. Components from Steel of West Virginia and from Nucor Steel's Kentucky mill produce new wind-ready steel to address a crucial need in clean energy development. The strength of the wood product manufacturing sector supports employment almost 3 times as concentrated as in the nation, serving construction markets from the coast west to the Mississippi. This foundation facilitates the evolution of new products like mass timber, which can help reduce carbon emissions of the built environment. The concentration of employment in plastics and rubber production is twice as high as typical in the nation. Today, petrochemical and plastic resin manufacturers use locally produced natural gas to make the resins from which conventional plastic products are made. This is an economic strength, but the market is changing, with the fastest growth in bioplastics made from crops, not natural gas. The region has what it takes to supply these crops, like hemp and sorghum, from which bioplastic feedstock can be derived, which can help the industry evolve into new and sustainable products that can reduce waste and environmental degradation and avoid natural resource depletion. There are many evolving connections between the basic manufacturing industries of north central Appalachia and the emerging clean tech economy. Prakash will review our network diagram on these connections.
Let's open this data visualization in a new tab for better viewing. So this is a radial network diagram, and it offers an illustrative, non-comprehensive look at how North Central Appalachia's strongest manufacturing sectors in blue here, how they connect to emerging green economic sectors in green, and how that in turns are connected to the specific products and technologies in pink. For example, if I hover above primary metal, we can see how this industry, where Appalachia holds a competitive strength, can contribute to 7 different green sectors we have identified, from energy storage to wind turbine. If I hover above energy sector, we can see the connections of 3 competitive industries in the North Central Appalachian region: primary metal, chemical, electrical equipment, how they can play a part in this green economic sector's energy storage, and how in that process we can produce items such as grid battery storage, lithium-ion batteries. This is a reminder that Appalachia isn't starting from zero, that we already have connections to the future.
A regional economy, of course, is built on local economies. Reimagine members have an interest in local economies that incorporate new clean technologies, renewable energy, and other green industries that address climate change and environmental degradation while creating well-paying jobs for Appalachians. This map highlights where those industries will grow. It shows where manufacturing employment is the strongest, as indicated by the darker shades of blue. It spreads across most of Pennsylvania and the western portions of the Appalachian counties in Ohio and Kentucky. A closer look by industry and county reveals strengths particular to specific counties. Now, if you look at textile products, you'll see that the region has by and large lost a once strong textile industry. Today, there are few counties with employment concentration in textiles. But scrolling across to wood products highlights the strong wood production industry of West Virginia, where location quotients in many manufacturing sectors is not all that high, but the state has concentrated employment in wood product manufacturing. The region's chemical industry is concentrated along the Ohio River, where some of the biggest plastic firms and chemical producers in the world make petrochemicals from which plastic resins for the plastic products is created. And in terms of plastics, you can see concentrated employment in the production of plastic products across Pennsylvania, as well as in the other states. It's an important industry in the region, employing close to 40,000 workers. We've got a sunburst chart that will provide an overview of our dashboard on manufacturing employment by industry and location.
I'll again open this data visualization tool here in the new tab. So this is a Sunburst chart that gives us an interactive top-down view of North Central Appalachian manufacturing, starting at the state level, which is the inner core here, and then extending to county level, which is the outer core. As we click on the county, it will spread to different manufacturing subsectors that are available in that county. This dashboard includes information for 210 counties in the North Central Appalachian region and helps us answer where are the jobs, which state leads in manufacturing, and how the jobs in a certain manufacturing subsector is distributed across counties and 6 states. For example, I'm interested here in Pennsylvania North Central Appalachian region. Here you can already see how the Appalachian portion of the Pennsylvania is doing broadly in manufacturing. It accounts for the largest share of the manufacturing jobs in the region, about more than 260,000. So let's sort of drill down to Pennsylvania. As I click here, it opens up to all the counties in Pennsylvania. I can go and click on Allegheny County, and it opens up to all the different manufacturing subsectors that are in the county. Here, for example, computer and electronic product manufacturing, it employs about 4,400 people, and it has a location quotient that is just shy of what is typical, which is 1. So as you hover above, you will find information of different manufacturing subsectors and how many people they employ in that particular county. I will just click this green arrow twice to come to the initial chart. We can also use this drop-down menu to hone in on one particular industry that we want. For example, let's say computer and electronic product manufacturing again, and what it does is filter through the data set to give us information only relevant to that industry. And here we can see how, again, Pennsylvania sort of leads in computer and electronic product manufacturing in the sort of 6-state region with 16,000 people employed. Allegheny County, we just saw a while ago about how it employs 4,400 people. New York comes second, New York Appalachian portion. It employs about 6,500 people. So this mini Sunburst chart dashboard can be a useful tool for you to learn more about the manufacturing subsectors and how jobs in those sectors are distributed across counties and the Appalachian portion of 6 states.
Analysis of the regional economy is a summation of data from places where the manufacturing happens in the plants and mills where people go to work every day and produce the goods we rely on in our everyday lives. Our map here gives more qualitative information on places, profiling each state and the industrial composition of 2 counties within each state, those with the most manufacturing and those with the least. Now, the foundation of the old economy has created assets for new markets and economic activities. The streams that run red with acid mine drainage will be mined for rare earth elements while cleaning the toxic water. Scientists and industrialists are exploring the extraction of critical minerals like lithium, magnesium, aluminum, and rare earths from coal ash ponds and other coal wastes. Shuttered coal plant sites themselves are becoming industrial parks with copious acreage, industrial zoning, heavy electrical connections, access to water, rail, road, and air transportation, and located in places with skilled workers. We've got a dashboard on our shuttered coal plant assets in the region as well.
This dashboard, developed by Reimagine, it is in its earliest stage, but it maps the location of retired coal plants across the four state Appalachian region: Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. It helps better understand where energy transitions are already underway and to explore opportunities for reuse, reinvestment, or remediation of former coal sites. Here, I will go forward and select all the states here to view retired sites across the region. I'm choosing this site in particular. I'll just zoom down a bit. This site is called Hatfield Ferry Power Station in Greene County, Pennsylvania. You'll see a description here that talks about different manufacturing subsectors that are competitive in that county vis-a-vis the nation. Now, I can also see the sort of ecosystem in which this retired coal site is. I'll just use the layer function here to turn off certain layers and then turn on the infrastructure layers. Within infrastructure, we have a waterway network, for example. As I click it, I find that this site is close to a navigable waterway. Similarly, if I turn on the airport layer, we'll see how this site is closer to an airport, which is Morgantown Airport in West Virginia. Similarly, let's see, roads. It's next to a road network, and same with the railway network line. It just lies next to railway network line. So that seems like a promising setup for potential industrial reuse or renewable energy siting, and you can do so for different different sites across the Appalachian region. So overall, this dashboard allows us to visualize where the retired coal plants are, their proximity to different transportation networks, and assess their reuse reinvestment potential.
The shuttered coal plant site offers an ideal location for circular manufacturing. Dozens of retired coal plant sites in central Appalachia provide unique opportunities for the efficient configuration of industrial parks in a net zero or eco-industrial park, like the eco-industrial park of the Industrial Commons in North Carolina. These sites are attracting investment interest of data centers, which are good tenants for circular manufacturing sites, not because they produce a lot of jobs, which is the ultimate goal of industrial development, but because their unique energy needs suit them well for combined heat and power or shared energy systems, which are efficient and cost-effective for groups of companies. So in conclusion, as Amanda mentioned earlier, we sought to answer a couple questions in our analysis. Given the region's competitiveness in a given industry, what role can the region play in the new clean economy? And number two, are there new and growing markets where the industry can grow? And if so, what steps are needed to turn that potential into reality? The past 25 years show that the manufacturing strength of North Central Appalachia is intact and growing, with strength in manufacturing subsectors essential to the new clean economy. New industrial jobs will be based on investment in these industries. New energy efficient capacity is being added to steel manufacturing, which serves renewable energy markets like wind turbines. New market demand for bioplastics made from locally grown crops can make existing plastics production more sustainable and less damaging. Those same local crops, as well as reuse of waste from coal, can help create construction materials with lower embodied carbon in production, which will build the energy efficient buildings of the future. As encouraging as these findings are, they call for further research. The location quotient formula does not capture all of the nuances of a region or industry and must be interpreted within a broader context. Decades of data-intensive research in economic geography have enabled researchers to quantify economic complexity and calibrate an industry's feasibility for a given region. A deeper understanding of Appalachia's economic complexity will help uncover underlying manufacturing capabilities, while studying industry feasibility will allow us to identify green and tech industries that align with the region's existing strength. And we look forward to your conversation today to help us further our research as we continue understanding the Appalachian economy.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Bakash. Brilliant. I know you're all excited to see that. So we have talked a little bit about the future of manufacturing we want to see for the region. Then we discussed the region's existing manufacturing strengths and how they connect to where we want to go. Now we will hear from Ritwika Bhattacharya, or Ritu, the Chief Executive Officer of Prosper America. She will start us off thinking about what we need to do to drive the investment in Appalachia that will be needed to get us from where we are to where we want to go. As well as the need for development of an investor profile for the region so we can really pitch investors on why they should be investing in Appalachia. And then hopefully to talk a little bit about why the Appalachian Manufacturing Action Plan might be helpful in that work. To you, Ritu.
Great, thank you so much. And Amanda, thank you for saying my name out right. That was a lot of vowels and syllables, and yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. And just wanted to echo like the sentiment as well as the tremendous presentation Vikas and Wendy you just kind of shared right now on mapping out the resource and the assets which are there. Amanda, you opened the session by actually sharing the potential which is there. Not just of new energy, but new energies coming in and new technologies coming in, but essentially that we're at the precipice of a kind of rethinking of how the economy is heading in a very different direction with technologies from across sector kind of changing, to say the least, AI being one of them, and changing how workforce responds and how industries are rethinking their own operations and work. So undoubtedly, it's a time for tremendous growth, but it's also a time of rethinking and recalibrating how to present where we stand and what we do. And what's really wonderful with the story map, which we just saw, is that there's active thinking with the Appalachian region on what the pathway forward which should be, and rooted in what the assets of the communities are. At Prosper America, one of the things that we had been doing for the last several months is to map out both the community sentiments on where they see the strengths being, as well as understanding from the industry perspective, what are the assets, what are the kind of characteristics and qualities that they look for when they're looking at new investments. Whether we focused our efforts primarily in renewable technologies, we focused on lithium-ion battery, we focused on solar PVs, to map out what are the criteria as investors that come in. And one of the things that we noticed, particularly for Appalachia, is that while there's a lot of assets, both by way of infrastructure, and in one of the initial surveys that came out, talent and human capital came out as a major point of resonance. And that's something else which really is an asset for the community. These are things that investors look for. So the question then begs itself is, how do we as communities, A, present the data points in a way that resonates and attracts investors? And then B, how do we find and continue to create those platforms to best present those insights? And that's something which we've been actively working on, is how, in terms of both, how do we present information which resonates? And again, Bikash and Wendy, the story map that you presented is an ideal case of what are the qualitative ways in which to talk about the assets which communities have. And one of the indicators, for example, that really inspires confidence is the amount of investment in the region already, which we had heard investors talk previously about, really kind of pulls in that aspect of what the possibilities are within the region. So at Prosper America, our intention has consistently been to be able to map out objectively those three boxes of how do you present infrastructure in a way that resonates with investors of technologies, of new and renewable technologies. How do you go ahead and map out talent, which consistently is one of those areas which we've noticed investors are very keen on, but grapple with being able to identify where do we get this data points from, both by way of graduates, both by way of the existing workforce. And then the third piece is to be able to look at what local industry and what the local ecosystem looks like to be able to house larger manufacturing and larger industry units. And so with these three kind of broad boxes in mind, we've been looking at working and being able to see how best we can build capacities of communities, and then simultaneously look at creating those platforms and those spaces for industries to come in and interact with communities and see how best that interaction can translate into tangible investments for them. The other thing that we've kind of realized is, there's so much capacity, capability, talent, and desire with communities to attract investors. And sometimes the limitations surround around telling stories and being able to get that point across. And so the other piece that we're actively working with RA, and RA has been tremendously helpful in this process, is to look at what do we do in order to engage with communities to have them tell stories really effectively, which resonate. And it's one of those things which is just so fascinating, especially in a platform today, to be able to see how much is out there. But oftentimes it's getting that word out, it's getting that insight out, which ends up being the most significant bottleneck. So one of the things which we are aiming to do as we move forward is to assess and see how best we can build capabilities essentially of communities to be able to tell their stories in a way that is true to the values of the communities, but at the same time really kind of showcases the assets that they have to investors. And just in terms of the pathway forward, for us, we're really focused in on being able to now map out and start to think more strategically in the Appalachia region, what are the specific pieces of support the communities need to be able to get these brilliant story maps out? What are the specific pieces of platforms that we need to pull together to get the more solar PV manufacturing, to be able to get lithium ion battery manufacturing companies to come in the same space and to be able to work and hear out communities on bringing in more investments. So that's kind of where we are headed to. With that, deeply grateful to RA for being partners with us on this pathway and looking forward to doing much more together. Back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ritu. So we have a lot of food for thought to set the stage for our facilitated breakout sessions, where you all will now have the opportunity to add your 2 cents on both the vision and action plan that is needed to grow clean and efficient manufacturing in the region. If I'm not mistaken, I think we did pretty good on time. Molly and Dana, do we have some time to do Q&A, or are we ready to go
We have
straight into
like
breakout sessions?
5 to 7 minutes for Q&A.
Okay, so let's bring all the speakers back up. And Molly, I will hand it to you to help facilitate that Q&A, or Dana.
Yes, I think Dana, were you tracking the questions?
Yeah, a lot of the questions we got answered in the chat as they were going. So if you asked a question in the chat and it was not answered, then go ahead and re-ask your question for the speakers in the chat. I do just want to open us as we were waiting for those questions to come up. If as we're moving into breakout rooms, I wonder if there's, and as like having heard the other speakers, are there kind of big thoughts that our panelists have about what's next, about what you're most excited about, and as folks move into the breakout rooms, things that you'll be thinking about that you want to encourage others to kind of think about too. So I might start with you, Tom, if you have any thoughts for us.
I think that, you know, the most important thing is just that that there are a lot of great, like, new technologies, new opportunities that entrepreneurs, maybe even some energy labs and universities are coming up with in the energy technology that are great, but often those are not the people who can make those technologies happen, can put them into place. And that's where you need, you know, some of the manufacturers in our region have been around for 100 years or more. They're multi-generational families and that sort of thing, but they're so focused on making payroll and, you know, keeping the customers they have and keeping the lights on, you know, literally, both because of the high energy costs and just because of all the other challenges, that they're not always looking at those cutting edge opportunities or those kind of things. So I think that something that Callus Connection tries to do, but it is a big task, and I think we all need to work together, is to bring all those different parties together, because the only way that this is going to be successful in Appalachia versus everywhere else in the world is if we are leading the way in the cutting edge technologies, the ideas, the new opportunities in energy, but with the practical, hands-on people who know how to roll up their sleeves and get a product out and make it happen, make sure it meets all the practical requirements, that already have the quality standards in place, and they have the transportation and logistics figured out. So I think it's going to be a constant effort, but I think that's where there's some great opportunity for those of us who aren't manufacturers that are on this call to be helping to produce that and make that happen.
I love that answer so much, and two things come to mind. One, we said earlier, what should people know about Appalachia? And there are so many connections. So what we always need more of is more connections to those folks who are doing the work, have those drinks, and to the folks who have the time and the space to dig into those questions about what's next and what could be the next thing. And so I think we have a strength in there that we can build on about the strength of our connections. And then the other piece I love about what you said is, there are folks here who know how to do this. They are experts in this work in the manufacturing, and that's what Wendy and Bakash's work points to. So I wonder if Wendy or Bakash, if you have any reflections for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick one, and that is I am just blown away at how much has been accomplished in North Central Appalachia since I worked in the last time I've been in policy for a long time, but the last time I worked in economic development was in 2010. And there's been so much happened since then. I've seen brownfield and coalfield sites turned into industrial parks. I'm seeing DPC, a veteran-owned small business in Meigs County, get into the supply chain for Intel and expand by 45 jobs with new technology and polyvinyl pipe production. I'm seeing a new kind of growth in energy that sometimes I was like, when will this ever happen? It's happening. And so I find it very exciting to be working in manufacturing in this area and seeing the great stuff that our existing manufacturers are doing and how they're getting involved in the supply chains. Just this morning, a group of manufacturing extension programs in Tom Reed's Catalyst Connections group were together talking about how Westinghouse is expanding its domestic supply chain and reinforcing it. There's opportunity for companies like DPC to get more and more business. So it's an exciting time in our region.
Thank you. Bakash, do you have anything to add to Wendy's great notes there?
Yeah, no, just to echo some of the points Wendy, Tom mentioned, the region is, I think, for a long time, I mean, we all knew that the region is good with manufacturing, but it also has so many different assets, navigable waterways, railway networks. We are within the reach of like most, within 300-mile radius, we reach Boston, we reach New York, like a lot of areas. So the w- we we have so much potential, and I don't think we have been able to sort of advertise more about it, like what are different assets that exist. So hopefully with the Appalachian Manufacturing Action Plan, we will be able to showcase so many different strengths that exist here, along with, of course, a formidable manufacturing base.
So we just have a moment before we need to move into breakouts, but Ritu, I'd love to hear about some of your thoughts. And there's some questions in the chat about barriers and opportunities that you're seeing, so I might direct that your way.
Right. No, thank you. Thank you for that. And I just kind of say that, all right, Keith, there was a question, a comment on critical minerals, a couple of questions ago, and
Yeah.
it made me think about like the strength of Appalachia, but also the strength of Appalachia relative to the needs globally and the needs nationally. And so it made me think about the fact that there is so much happening and it's happening so quickly by way of demands from different sectors. I think positioning Appalachia for what its strength has been is very valuable, but keeping in mind that areas like critical minerals processing, mining, circular economy, and kind of being able to salvage critical minerals from that ecosystem is going to end up becoming more and more relevant. So how does Appalachia place itself in that global context of these moving pieces? And how does it keep itself more competitive and potentially ahead of those kind of curves and being able to project and predict what might come, and preparing itself potentially of what might come is going to end up being just so important given how fast these pieces are moving, and how quickly we would as a community need to adapt to what is to come.
That's such a great note, and it moves us so smoothly into our breakout session because one of our panels one of our breakout options is going to be on reuse it in Appalachia and how we can take advantage of some of those historical both barriers and opportunities that we have. So Molly, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit more about the breakouts and
Yeah,
and then
absolutely. I'm going to open up the rooms now, but I'm worried. Am I having is
yes,
there a
it's
box on the darn?
fully blocking the screen. You need to share.
I might need you to share. Let me try one thing. I'm gonna actually plug in my monitor and see if I can just move this to the other screen or not. Okay,
So
1 second.
I'll talk for a minute while you're doing that. And so if you are a note taker or facilitator of the upcoming breakouts, then you should have been
Dana, I am gonna ask you to screen share if you don't mind.
It's on the Menti poll. Great.
Yep.
So you should automatically be moved, and you should have had a pop-up come up that says, do you want to join this room, with like a red button, and you can just click that red button and move on in there. For everybody else, there should be a pop-up that is coming up that gives you the option to move into rooms. If you can't find that in your Zoom toolbar, then we can also move you manually. So Molly, I'm going to have you explain that process while I pop this Menti up.
Yeah, and hopefully you all can hear me still. My screen is actually
just fine.
frozen.
I can hear you
Hopefully
just
move
fine.
people to rooms as soon as I can. But okay, here we go. I should be able to help now move people. So yeah, like Dana said, if you go to the bottom right handlebar on the Zoom, you should see an option for, are you getting the screen share up, Dana?
I am.
Okay. You should see a little box that says breakout rooms, or you might have to press the 3 little dots and then find the button that says breakout rooms, and you can join that way. If you're not finding that, or you're not sure what breakout room you want to be in, wow, I didn't know that we had the pin option available here. That works. We will move you into the breakout room. So the easier way would probably be for folks to type in the chat what room you'd like to be in. So if you don't mind putting in the chat, I'd like to be in room 3, room 4, so on and so forth, we will get you moved to the right place. In the meantime, will try to move over some of the folks. Actually, I can't see who put the pins. So yeah, just put in the chat where you'd like us to move you to, and we'll get you there. Okay, thank you, Lauren.
All right, perfect. You can
Let's see,
also,
Dana.
yeah, different
Dana,
Dana.
you're actually, and I think I just
She'll make
realized
it.
it might, yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
might
just
want
do this
Liam
for
to
1
screen
minute.
share. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll in a minute, folks.
Liam, you should probably get the screen share ready though, if you have do you have access to the Mentimeter? That way, when Dana does leave.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. Whenever
Remember,
you do.
Joanne is 3. I got that one, Marilyn.
Thanks for bearing with us. This technology is not working in our favor as much today as it sometimes does.
It does something different every time. I swear, this is not our first rodeo here, but it's always something fresh and exciting. I've moved everybody that I saw. So if you have a question on where you want to go, or you're not moved yet and you want to be, please do. Since we've moved everybody, just FYI, if you are not moved yet, you probably show to us as moved and you may need to leave and come back. That does happen sometimes. And so if you're not finding yourself in the new room, then just let us know. So if you put your thing in there, you should already be gone. If you're still here, then there was a problem, and just repost that and we'll try again. So
Dana, I think you should probably head over so you can get the recording and stuff going, but thank you for your help.
Yeah.
We'll handle it.
I got a big party in my room, so I'm gonna go party. Appreciate y'all.
Molly.
Okay, Doug, I will get you moved to room 5. And yeah, Liam, do you want to try screen sharing the Mentimeter and see what it looks like?
Yeah.
Can you put Andrew in? You want to go to
So,
4, right?
Yeah, Andrew, you should already have an option to join that room. Is it giving you the option to join?
Yeah, and it keeps giving me a message that either there's like something blocking me. I don't know if it's my end.
It probably is. So this happens sometimes. You'll unfortunately have to like leave the Zoom and come back in. I don't know why it does that to
Okay.
some people.
All
Sorry,
right, so
Andrew.
no problem. I'll try it now.
Okay, sounds good. And Tessa, so I'm not sure what you mean by Ohio room. We're not actually doing breakouts today based off of state. There are people that are in Ohio in all of our various breakout rooms. So it's up to which topic you'd like to be in. We have make it in Appalachia, buy it in Appalachia, grow it in Appalachia, reuse it, and work it in Appalachia. And Amanda, do you have a room you'd like to be in?
I may
Tessa, I
just
will get you.
move in and out.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Okay, Forrest and Tessa, I think I got you, so thanks. And thanks, Liam, for screen sharing. I think while we have the time, once we get everyone moved, I'm gonna play around with that not working. So yeah, to the folks that are still here in the room, if you'd like for us to move you into a breakout room at all, please just let us know. Otherwise, we are just gonna be kind of hanging here. There you are, Andrew. See if it lets you join now. Yeah, you should be able to see the topics up on the
Yeah.
screen.
Can we just move Andrew into the session?
We did, but it's not
into 4.
allowing. Yeah,
We can't do it.
Well, we did, but it's not allowing him to go into the room, it looks like.
I can try.
You can't.
I could try my phone and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, maybe what I'll do, Andrew, I'm gonna try moving you out of room 4 and then putting you back in room 4 and see if that works this time. Let's see.
All right, no problem.
Okay, so now let me see what happens if I try putting you back. Now, does it give you the option? Ed, I will get you in room 3. Oh, that worked. Oh, maybe not. Are you still here, Andrew?
Yeah,
Darn.
I'm gonna try switching to my phone.
Joining us again. We are just gonna give the other breakout rooms a minute to get back, and I'm going to get our live stream back up and running here for our second panel. So just bear with us a moment while we wait for everyone to get back into the main room here. Let me see. Yeah, I think we still have some breakout sessions not here yet, so we'll just wait another moment till they get forced over here. Let me see now. Okay, I think most folks are coming back. So I think we can probably go ahead and get started. Hopefully those breakout sessions went well. I am eager to hear all about it. But I am going to keep us on track and pass things over to Steve Herzenberg, who's going to kick off our next panel discussion. So Steve, it's all yours.
Thank you, Molly. So I'm just going to say a few words. I'm supposed to summarize a little bit of what we talked about earlier and then provide a bit of context for this second panel. So in terms of the earlier session, I mean, the Mentimeter highlighted attendees' shared commitment to sustainability, good jobs, and worker-centered approaches, as tends to be the case in Reimagine meetings. We've got a lot of compatibility in terms of values. Amanda framed our conversation as answering what are the products of the future, the growing markets in which Appalachia can compete. Tom highlighted opportunities in clean energy and shared how Catalyst Connection and other extension partnerships are generating energy supply chain reports so that manufacturers can see where they have opportunities to compete. Wendy and BCAS told us North Central Appalachia is built for the clean economy and still has significant economic strengths. They also identified specific industrial strengths of our region and mapped connections between those and green industries of the future. Ritu from Prosper America focused on the importance of communicating to potential investors in ways that resonate about the assets of coal country Appalachia, our infrastructure, our talent, our industry strengths. And then Amanda at the beginning, but I want to end my summary of the opening session on this point and emphasize that we're looking for broad stakeholder endorsement for our Appalachian Manufacturing Action Plan. That can give us the power to impact manufacturing policy nationally and in the region. And I really do think that those are realistic aspirations, because there's not a lot of leadership in terms of policy in these areas, and we can provide some of that leadership and we can have an impact. Here's where I want to provide that additional context for the panel 2 discussion on getting from here to there, and to sort of reflect on this particular moment when we're developing this manufacturing action plan. Coal country Appalachia's experience since the 1970s, a half century of policy malpractice. From 1971, when the U.S. after World War II first ran a trade deficit, to about 2009, much of U.S. manufacturing policy was so-called free trade. Federal trade policy basically facilitated the movement of investment and production by U.S.-based multinationals to Mexico and then to Asia, including China, so that those companies could supply the U.S. market with using low-wage labor. The Washington Consensus on Trade and Manufacturing Policy began to shift with the Obama administration bailout of the auto industry. The establishment of Obama's Advanced Manufacturing Partnership in 2011 and of Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Institutes began to flesh out a more coherent national policy aimed at enabling the U.S. to lead in manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 signaled an irreversible bipartisan shift away from open access to the U.S. market and embrace of protectionism as one tool to strengthen future U.S. manufacturing. The U.S. now is beginning to craft a post-free trade manufacturing policy anchored by a grounded understanding of the importance of industry clusters to innovation and competitive advantage. This policy must dramatically improve the effectiveness of the U.S. at translating leadership in scientific and technology fields into manufacturing production and high-wage jobs. So our efforts to develop a manufacturing action plan for Appalachia comes at a moment ripe with opportunity. We can shape emerging U.S. manufacturing policy. We can ensure that it supports Appalachian coal country in capitalizing on what remains a powerful manufacturing base that was not remarkably destroyed by a half-century of policy malpractice. For Keystone Research Center and other Pennsylvania stakeholders, including panelist Petra Mitchell, the president and CEO of Catalyst Connection, this is not the first time we've been engaged with the development of state-level, or in this case, multi-state manufacturing policy. In 2003 and 4, at the beginning of Governor Rendell's first term in Pennsylvania, the Steel Valley Authority, the United Steelworkers, the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, the Manufacturers Association of South Central Pennsylvania, Keystone Research Center, and Pennsylvania's Manufacturing Extension Partnerships advocated together for a comprehensive state-level manufacturing policy. Catalyst and the other MEPs contributed a rigorous study that mapped the industry strengths of Pennsylvania's regional economies and how to build on them. Our efforts led to Governor Rendell's late 2004 manufacturing innovation policy. This invested in manufacturing industry partnerships, increased state funding for extension partnerships, expanded Pennsylvania's national model layoff aversion program statewide, created a manufacturing ombudsman in the Pennsylvania Department of Community Economic Development, created a trade office in Washington, D.C., aimed at more proactively using U.S. unfair trade law to protect Pennsylvania manufacturing jobs, and contributed to the creation of a statewide Center for Advanced Manufacturing Careers with an advisory board drawn from industry. Today, we have consensus nationally and in our region that we need a manufacturing policy. Reimagine Appalachia also has a new partner, the American Manufacturing Communities Collaborative, which brings together fellow travelers from across the country that share with Reimagine the conviction that strategic manufacturing investments can unlock future sustainable prosperity. I'm going to hand things off now to the facilitator or moderator for this discussion, Matt Bogosian, who's the American Manufacturing Communities Collaborative's executive director. He's an entrepreneurial leader who served as a policy official at the EPA, where he helped to create and lead the Obama administration's Investing in Manufacturing Communities Partnership. Matt leads the AMCC, which is a successor organization to the Investing in Manufacturing Communities. We're thrilled at Reimagine to have Matt as a relatively new partner and look forward to learning from him and our other panelists in the discussion to come up. Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Steve, and delighted to be partnered with you and learning from you. I mean, I think you nailed it, a half century of policy malpractice. And so here we are. I share your enthusiasm, though, Wendy, earlier in the earlier session, your enthusiasm too. It's going to take a lot of systems leadership. That's one of the terms that we use, of coming together bottom up to advance sustainable development. Like Steve said, I'm Matt Bogosian, Executive Director of the American Manufacturing Communities Collaborative, also called AMCC. It's great to see a lot of names. We're the federally designated manufacturing community of practice with stakeholders around the country who engage virtually every week on a free Monday national call and a free AMCC Friday update newsletter, which both of those things have been happening in one way or another for over 10 years. It's a good way to stay connected every week around evidence-based policy, our theory of change to produce priority products. We'll talk about that a little bit here on this panel. AMCC, has this, weekly conversation going on about what our best practices and whatever we produce. And I'll be sharing a little bit to frame the discussion with our expert panelists, is born from input from regions around the country, from stakeholders in the public, private, and nonprofit sector. And so we kind of reflect back for everyone. We're free, open source. We in our newsletter, we have funding opportunities, evidence-based research, lots more. I'm here on the call with our operations director, David Van Sicklin, who I suspect will be dropping items in the chat. You can drop in there how you get our AMCC update newsletter every week. But going on to our discussion about what we can do to get toward strengthening the cornerstone of the American economy and manufacturing from Appalachia. I'm going to frame the discussion with some slides. So David, if I could call on you to bring this up. This, it's anyone. The point of this is to kind of help get our heads around. I talked about systems leadership, right? It's a little bit daunting for any single person to kind of understand how they can add value and have agency to lift their region, their community around the manufacturing sector. And so this is what we've co-created with many of our stakeholders, to include our panelists here on the call, about how do we strategically attack this challenge to make this an American century with a strong manufacturing cornerstone. So the hope is, and we'll, love feedback, going forward about, this is to help each of us see where we are, to understand where we sit and how we can add value to producing those priority products that could lift companies, workers, communities in Appalachia or otherwise toward advancing sustainable development. So just to level set. All right. So the first pillar is around key priority industries, and we've shared this with Steve and Reimagine, to inform the manufacturing action plan. And I spoke about this a little bit on our breakout. There is we got to be skating, to where the puck is going to be in terms of producing priority products in these big and overlapping industries, and the draft action plan is already getting at that, definitely with respect to energy and some of the others, but that's important to have that focus, so that we're, these are key product priorities for long-term American prosperity. And underneath that, of course, is applying new technologies, right? Because there's a proliferation of new technologies. We're in this big, new industrial revolution. So we got to do both at the same time on that pillar. The second pillar is around, okay, from our region, how do we kind of understand the ecosystem of support that are existing and hopefully a lot newer manufacturers, what subsystems need to be operating sufficiently for those manufacturers to thrive. And so this has been a over 10-year hypothesis that has borne the test of time and experience around what we need to work on, the workforce and training, the research, innovation, entrepreneurship, infrastructure, site development, supply chain support, trade, international investment, operational improvement, and capital access. All 6 of those subsystems, you could break them out. They could be even more than 6 there, and some of them are kind of joined together there, but you get the point. We've developed, and we'll talk a little bit with Nikhil here about the development of a manufacturing community ecosystem metrics tool and playbook, which hopefully can add value to the Appalachia Manufacturing Action Plan. Underneath that, of course, everyone here on this call recognizes that everyone in the region has a role, right? It's not just the manufacturers, but it's the ecosystem of support around all of these subsystems. And then the third pillar is, what are we all driving toward? And this is where our alignment with Reimagine is really strong. And I think it is where, we're going to address this policy malpractice for for decades, right? Is the North Star is sustainable development, around national security, economic, social, and environmental progress, all wrapped together. That's the best framework for making progress in the real world. Those elements are called out in the Chips and Science Act, the bipartisan Chips and Science Act that was passed, and discussing the social, national, and geostrategic challenges we're trying to overcome. And then how do we do that is the sub slide here, and we're doing it right now. Relationship building, storytelling, strategizing, and then morphing that into actions that each of us from our own perch can do in a collective impact MO toward developing better structures that address that policy malpractice that has been happening, that that everyone has, has been sadly a part of, right? From the national government for sure, but our state governments and our local governments, the private sector, our nonprofit philanthropic partners, we all have can look to mistakes we've made in the past. Now it's like, how do we come together with an evidence-based approach to build and create better structures in this country? And so it's with that kind of framework that I'm delighted to introduce our panelists for this discussion, to get their take on how they see Appalachia moving forward. Our first is Petra Mitchell, President and Chief Executive Officer of Catalyst Connection, and then also Nikhil Kalathil, Deputy Director of Strategic Initiatives and Research Scientist at Carnegie Mellon University, and also Senior Advisor, a PhD Senior Advisor for Ecosystem Assessment for AMCC. So thank you both for being on here. Let me turn to you first, Petra, a longtime partner and leader within the AMCC national community. Tell us a little bit about your perch at Catalyst Connection and how you see advancing Appalachia's manufacturing progress. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. And thanks to Steve Herzenberger, too, with a trip down memory lane. So I do remember those days in the early 2000s and, working in Harrisburg with our delegations and our partners and so forth. And I believe making some good progress at that time to support manufacturing. And I think there's opportunity to do that again. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, everyone, you met my colleague Tom Reed on the earlier panel. We're both from Catalyst Connection. We're located in Pittsburgh. We're an economic development organization and the MEP and the IRC for the region. And as Tom mentioned, we have been doing this work for over 35 years, actually, when our program was started at the state level as a response to the decline of the industrial age, to the decline of the steel industry and the materials sectors and those kinds of things in Pennsylvania. And the IRC program was created to help small and medium-sized manufacturers diversify from those declining sectors and continue to thrive and be around and support local communities. And one of the things that, in my experience, I've been here for most of that time actually, is that many times it's been the small manufacturers that have left a glimmer of hope in some of these left behind communities. And what I'm pleased to say is, even though it's been a tough time, many times there's been ups and downs for manufacturers, the data that manufacturing is a strong and viable industry in Pennsylvania, in Appalachia, and probably even in this country. In Pennsylvania itself, manufacturing represents 11% of GDP, or $12 billion. 9% of all workers work in manufacturing. The multiplier effect is something like 2 to 1. So that's over 1 million people that are, good quality jobs as a result of manufacturing. We're the 6th largest manufacturing state. And, who's contributing to these positive outcomes, positive economic impacts? It's small and medium-sized manufacturers. It's those companies that have diversified, that have successfully innovated, that reinvested in their business, stayed in their local communities. 99% of all of Pennsylvania's manufacturers have less than 500 employees. So I think some of the investments that we've made in like the MEP program, the IRC program, workforce initiatives, policy initiatives, they've worked because small and medium-sized manufacturers are the backbone of our economy. They're viable companies. Some of them have been around for over 100 years. And they're growing and expanding. They're doing something right. We have a lot to learn from these companies. They're innovating, investing, and growing. So that's my, positive thoughts for the moment, Matt. And I'll turn it over to Nikhil, and then I'm happy to, just participate in a conversation about more around this topic.
Right. Yeah. Let's have that conversation. And let me turn to you, Nikhil, to talk because we have to bring the best evidence to bear, right? This is not easy. Plus, we're in this international competition with the People's Republic of China that wants to dominate the world and really, change the whole playing field. So we've got to be really strategic and bring the best evidence to bear on how we strengthen our manufacturing cornerstone of the American economy. And so that's why we're so delighted to have you, a scientist, PhD, working with other economists across the country to develop this ecosystem science. Talk a little bit about your perspective, your background, what you're working on, and your perspective on how we bring the best evidence to bear to make the kind of progress towards sustainable development and manufacturing that we all want. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt, and thanks so much to the Reimagine team for the invite. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here today. I am both a researcher at Carnegie Mellon, but also a practitioner in growing and developing regional manufacturing ecosystems. And I think that we just have an incredible opportunity right now at this moment to reimagine how we make things and what we value in this country. Building on what Petra left us with in terms of emphasis on small and medium manufacturers, a lot of my work in this space really kind of ratcheted up and ramped up around the COVID-19 pandemic when we saw a lot of organic entry of small and medium-sized businesses into manufacturing of medical supplies that were in severe shortages in response to the needs of the pandemic. However, at that time, what we also saw was that there was a failure by the federal government and a failure by existing large companies to properly integrate these small and medium-sized manufacturers into the demand stream and actually get these products to the people who need them and more broadly disseminate and distribute these goods and the innovations that individual manufacturers kind of created. And so building on that, we but continued working on these ecosystem efforts because it really does take an ecosystem to connect the dots, to connect the small and medium-sized manufacturers to the people who are going to be buying those products, to the people who are going to be using those products. And you need actors across this full value chain, not just supply chain, but the full value chain to be aligned and in agreement about where to go. I think as I think about this issue, recently I've been doing some, research into history about American manufacturing. And I think one thing that struck me is if you go back to the 1970s and the post-World War II era, we really used manufacturing and industry to help rebuild Japan and Korea and a lot of these other economies. We gave them shipbuilding and nuclear energy and rare earth manufacturing. And they were incredibly successful in revitalizing these war-torn economies. And now, as we sit here in America and have many communities that have experienced the downfall of manufacturing and are declining overall, we have an opportunity, I think, to revitalize these regions and these areas by reinvesting in manufacturing. I'll make three kind of quick comments here about why manufacturing, why do we need policy, and then why Appalachia. Why do I think manufacturing is important? I think number one, I think manufacturing is important because it requires coordination of not just supply chains, but of a diverse group of stakeholders that have a lot of different interests and incentives and operations. And the practice of coordinating this diverse group of stakeholders helps you develop capacity to solve other complicated, hard problems and change how the physical environment and the physical world around you looks. At each stage of these value chain, you have an opportunity to add value and increase the goods that you've been given into something new and transform it. And then finally, there's there's specific metrics that you can track in terms of cost and performance. And when we think about cost, we think about not only just the actual price of these products, but the energy used to create these products, the labor used to manufacture them and such. And with manufacturing, we can strive towards increasing the performance of the products that we create, as well as driving down the cost in a multitude of dimensions. Why policy? It's because we need to have diverse alignment across different stakeholders that would otherwise be swimming in a bunch of different directions. But when we can align them together with good policy and with good strategy, we can make the whole greater than the sum of its parts and coordinate towards more productive action in general. And then why Appalachia? I think that as discussed previously and as mentioned in the data that we have, there is a lot of industrial capacity in the region and a lot of industrial assets in the region that are very well positioned to make products again. But I think, one of the aspects of this session and this format that I really love is the emphasis on the circular economy, because I do think that we have an opportunity to reinvent how we think about what we manufacture and to really emphasize the circular economy aspects of manufacturing in the region. You can think about, what is going to create a sustainable manufacturing economy. It's going to come across when you have a coordination and alignment between manufacturers, users, and then the people who are going to repair their products and put it back into the system. And you can, again, lower costs and lower energy by recycling and lowering the environmental footprint and the environmental impact of some of these services. I think as we look forward to the future, we don't want to just create another situation where we're mountaintop blasting and causing damage to surrounding communities and, creating pollution and agricultural runoff that we have struggled to deal with. But we want to manufacture in a way that actually helps us move towards a more positivistic and better future for everyone.
Yeah, that's for sure. And thanks, Nikhil. And you see in the chat was dropped a link to the playbook for the manufacturing community ecosystem metrics for regional assessment. So that is under development. We're ultimately, with federal agencies and Deloitte and Argonne National Laboratory, we're hopefully going to get to a point where we have a free open source tool to go along with that playbook, and Nikhil is taking a leading role in helping to co-create that. And so, in one of the breakouts, we were talking a little bit about Appalachia's advantages. And one of the things that I know Nikhil focuses on in his research is this idea of clusters coming together, agglomeration, and Nikhil can explain to us what that means. But Petra, you are, kind of part of the Appalachia team, and it is already a self-defined region in many ways. And so in the breakouts that we were talking about, that's an advantage in some ways for Appalachia because it's already self-identified. All those different communities see themselves as a region in many ways. There's also the Appalachia Regional Commission and whatnot. What's your take on how you can build that regional muscle better and be an example to the rest of the country about how you can cross these kind of jurisdictional lines productively, getting all the state governments to work together, getting all the different stakeholders to work together? How do you see that as an advantage for Appalachia? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, I think it definitely gives us more critical mass. We're this broader region. So, for example, the ARC, the ARC-funded ARISE project that Tom discussed on the earlier panel, that's a 5-state initiative that includes 155 counties and 10,000 manufacturers. That certainly gives us more critical mass to demonstrate the importance of our work, of our industry, the volume of companies and so forth. It also helps us, like you said, with stakeholders. Elected officials are critical in helping us to grow manufacturing with various policies, funding, and so forth. This gives us a much larger delegation to work with. And we found that while we were working on the ARISE application and so forth, we had very strong bipartisan support. Manufacturing is an issue that I think we can get strong alignment on. And by working together, like I said, we have a critical mass, a larger volume of people on our team, and a greater opportunity for success that way.
Nikhil, can you speak a little bit about what the evidence is around this idea of clusters, like what Petra is talking about? What's the advantage of that? Just so the folks on the call are, encouraged that this is not pie in the sky, but there's real strong evidence about the benefits of agglomeration. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history and a lot of existing evidence around the benefits of clusters and industrial agglomerations. When we talk about industrial agglomerations, what we're really referring to here is communities that have strong connective tissue with one another that allow you to share labor pools, to share knowledge, and to have spillovers from location and proximity to both suppliers as well as customers. And all three of those different externalities kind of overlap and create spillovers from one another that increases the value that an individual place and a location can add. One of the statistics that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that in the rare earths conversation, we only import somewhere between, 100 and $500 million of actual value of rare earths a year. But then that rare earth is transformed into multiple billions of dollars and at orders of magnitude higher of economic value as they're put into motors for EVs, for drones, for wind turbines, and a whole variety of downstream applications. And right now we have a situation where a lot of these supply chains are globalized and are fragmented and are not working together to really drive synergies and drive down costs while increasing performance. When you have clusters that are working together at different parts of the value chain, and especially in a circular fashion, where you can reintegrate end use supply back into the demand stream, you are able to create a lot more of these synergies, and you are able to increase the cycles of innovation that you benefit from. I think we've seen evidence for this in China, and is the biggest example here, where the Shenzhen economy is basically a giant industrial cluster that operates across electronics, batteries, and motors in a way that really increases the value for each of those different components and unlocks a whole variety of downstream applications. You don't get access to those downstream applications unless you have access to cheap, effective, high performance supply. And I think that when we're reimagining what US manufacturing might look like, I would argue that the previous era of US manufacturing is what I would call OEM driven manufacturing. So it's coordinated by the large manufacturers, by Ford and GM and the industrial titans. And as we look forward, I think that there's a real opportunity to do a more bottom-up approach to manufacturing here, where it's really driven by these supplier ecosystems and these supplier bases that are producing components that are highly effective, that are made in a clean and sustainable way, but then unlock a whole variety of downstream use cases that can be used from all sorts of applications, such as decarbonization or transportation or anything else that you might imagine.
So I mentioned in the breakout session about this opportunity to chime in on what a new national strategy for advanced manufacturing ought to include. And David could drop in the chat the link to that RFI, which is open till December 12th for anyone here on this call or otherwise your organizations or your network to have input on that. But AMCC did some early draft ideas, big ideas, and one of those was to have federal funding for regional collaboration centers where we can build the kind of muscle that doesn't go away in a region. So that coordination Nikhil is talking about and that Petra has led for so many years can sustain, right? Because that is the American way, bottom up, right? We're not gonna, we're so, fragmented in so many ways, and it's kind of the democratic way. We're not a top-down society unless we're in a major war or something like that, with the World War II example Nikhil was referring to. So we need to have a new structure in this country that is enabled, that enables regions to have sustaining cooperation amongst their public, private, and nonprofit sector. And so, we're obviously in this era of intermittent federal support, I would say, for manufacturing, right? We've had these consortia initiatives. Steve talked about IMCP as one of those, the NSF engines, the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, the Tech Hub program, et cetera. These are good, albeit intermittent interventions from the feds. We need sustained interventions. Petra, how do you see, you've been on the front lines of kind of building that sustaining collaboration muscle. What do we do in the short term? We turn to states and philanthropy or whatever, and what do we do long term? What's your take on how we build that kind of sustaining collaboration, coordination muscle? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I wanted to just comment before we talk about that on Nikhil's comment about, what's really driving manufacturing. And you're absolutely right. It's not, in this Appalachian region, it's not OEM driven. And I think that's been a positive because we're very diversified here. Just in our region in southwestern Pennsylvania, our survey of our manufacturers, the average manufacturer participates in 4.5 supply chains. And I think that's even understated. And many times, it's the same company, but they're in defense, they're in energy, transportation, even medical device, because we make the kinds of things that are necessary, precision machining, precision manufacturing, the integration with electronics, the kinds of things that were in Wendy's tool or the tool that Wendy presented. These are foundational components that are critical, like I said, in almost every industry. So that's been very good for this region in terms of, just managing the ebbs and flows of ups and downs, declines in automotive, increases, declines in defense, up, down, those kinds of things. I think that's definitely a strength for us and helps us to build this cluster-based strategy that, we're talking about now moving forward. So you're right. My sort of first foray into this was leading our Greater Pittsburgh metals manufacturing community, an IMCP initiative that was launched in 2015. It was probably part of that whole industrial policy that Steve was referring to, around the time of the Manufacturing USA Institutes, the manufacturing communities, and so forth. We pulled together a tri-state region, multiple partners in all of the key elements of a cluster building strategy. So small business, large business, economic development, workforce development, research, those kinds of things. Capital has been a big issue. Site development, capital for expansions, all part of the team. That work led us to a defense manufacturing community, which I'm very proud of that work because, Pennsylvania is a very large defense state. We're the 7th largest defense state in the country for defense spending. And southwestern Pennsylvania and West Virginia, we have a very active defense supply chain with, excuse me, significant opportunities for growth there. So that defense manufacturing community really enabled us to do some good cluster building work around defense. And then now the ARC, with the ARISE program and so forth, is allowing us to do some similar things. Excuse me here. So moving forward, I think that is the approach. So we're building clusters. They can be, you don't need one cluster in a community. So a cluster around energy production, a cluster around life sciences. We're doing a lot of that work with the University of Pittsburgh, building out the supply chain and the workforce for life sciences. One that I'm really excited about, actually, wood products and the wood whole working, connecting the wood products manufacturing supply chain to the working forests value chain. We had a whole event on that yesterday. And I think that is going to offer tremendous opportunity for the Appalachian communities. Working forests are a big part of our geography. We have a lot of wood. It's sustainable, very sustainable practices in our forests. And they're looking for more demand. So more demand through manufacturing and other uses. So anyway, so there's a lot of these opportunities, and we can create a model that's repeatable that, again, includes the supply chain. It includes economic development organizations, MEPs, and IRCs. It includes our workforce programs, both from a funding and a training perspective, but also a training delivery. Apprenticeship programs really need to be an integral part of this strategy moving forward. And we need to also connect our high school students into this. We need to start with them. They need to be viewed as part of this cluster building strategy because they're the future of our workforce. And then capital. Capital is a big deal in any type of expansion. We need capital for that expansion. So I'd say, Matt, those are part of that big 6. I think they're still relevant. And I think that's the kind of model we need to build moving forward.
If I can just add two
Right. Do you see, please, Nikhil?
If
Yeah.
I can just add two comments to what Petra just explained, I think if you take the example of wood manufacturing, one of the opportunities to really develop a cluster here and the benefits of a cluster is that you're able to use a lot more of the byproducts and the secondary products from such a supply chain than would otherwise be worthwhile to use if you had a more international and distributed supply chain. There's biomass that's generated that can be turned into fuel. There's other sorts of products that can be used to, create resins that can be used in polymers and stuff like that. And so that's when you start seeing crossovers and spillovers that allow you to use these products and these technologies in unanticipated and in new ways. I think Rika mentioned in the chat these examples of battery manufacturing in the region. And again, batteries are such a great technology and an example here because batteries can go into a whole variety of downstream applications. And when there is local supply and local demand for batteries, you can start to create a more synergistic system and a more synergistic cycle that allows you to put out new innovations and allows new companies to put out new innovations. When we think about why the OEM-driven economy was so effective in the past, it's because coordinating supply chains is difficult. And big companies like Ford and Boeing and GM are able to say, this is what we need you to be designing too. And then in previous eras, they would also contribute to workforce development and to community development and to engagement in the areas that they were operating in. When we start to flip that on its head, suppliers and manufacturers are operating without clear directions of where to go and where opportunity is and where demand is. And so our goal with some of the efforts that we've been doing and some of the ecosystem approaches that we've been doing is to basically provide metrics and to provide guidance to these manufacturers to say, hey, here are some high opportunity areas that you could consider expanding to that are already in your skill set. You don't have to do anything new. You already have the capabilities to meet these areas. And then on the other side, it's saying, hey, look at these suppliers. They're producing the parts that you need. You don't need to go to China to do your prototyping. You can do it right here because you're going to get actually the ability to go walk down the street to a factory and test out how this new propulsion system is working on your drone or something like that, and that just unlocks a degree of value and a degree of opportunity that I think is unprecedented. And it really makes me excited about the future of where we might be able to go.
And that's what I'm excited about, Nikhil, because there's this marriage here of the Appalachia region already being self-identified across jurisdictional boundaries, right, as a region that can take advantage of what the best evidence is around agglomeration and prove to the rest of the country that that's the right MO. So we don't have, I think Wendy was talking about it, this kind of bad habit from the 20th century when we were top of the economic, worldwide economic manufacturing, mountain or whatever, when we could do this state by state race to the bottom, we're the best state, we can do it all in our state, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't work in the 21st century. We need to work as a team. We have a lot of important priority products to produce. Everyone, we've got to prove the case that every region can have an important and meaningful role that can lift those manufacturing companies, their workers, and those families in those communities. And so kind of the evidence is coming together with some inherent advantages for Appalachia to showcase the cross-jurisdictional MO. Petra, were you going to jump in there, please?
Yeah, I was just going to say something in terms of just manufacturing growth. Earlier this year, the MEPs in Pennsylvania, we commissioned an implant analysis. So the question was, what will it look like if we could double the average annual growth rate of manufacturing output in Pennsylvania? So the last 5 years, the average has been around 5%. What would it look like if that became 10%? And the implant analysis, the results are compelling and strong. 368,000 new jobs. So we already have 500,000, almost 600,000 jobs in manufacturing. This would add almost, 400,000 jobs. $34 billion of new payroll. So that goes right into the pockets of working families. And $12 billion of new tax revenue at both the state and the local level. So, it becomes very real and very practical to policymakers and decision makers, local governments, and so forth, that the benefits of growing a manufacturing sector in your community are real, and they, can really contribute to economic prosperity for your community.
And I think what's awesome
Yeah.
about manufacturing here is it's a positive sum game, right? I think that there are so many other sectors that are zero sum games where the winner is going to take all. When Amazon comes to town or selects a specific area, they're going to be the biggest employer there, and they're going to, it is what it is. I think in manufacturing, when you have these local ecosystems that, again, drive down costs and increase performance, you unlock the amount of new products that you're able to build. There's a comment in the chat about, we have a lot of innovation and pilot development that goes elsewhere for upscaling and production. And that's a problem that I've been super focused on lately, because it's true. We do a lot of prototyping and design and innovation in America, and then we just scale it elsewhere, or we produce it at mass elsewhere. And that shouldn't necessarily be happening. And why is that happening? And it's happening in a lot of cases because suppliers currently aren't well suited for the needs of startups. They're not used to making 5 to 10 products a year. They're not used to having to constantly iterate and face these different uncertainties about what product design they're going to be dealing with. And then startups don't have the language to interface with these suppliers because they don't have the design for manufacturing capabilities or tools and technologies. And this is where I think that the ecosystem layer and organizations like Catalyst Connection provide enormous value, because they can act as the gearbox between suppliers and startups to help understand that there's a huge opportunity for both sides of this equation to benefit, where when suppliers can get access to local prototyping and scaling facilities and faster lead times and lower costs and higher quality products, they're able to innovate and create products that perform way better than they would if they're relying on international supply chains in certain cases. And on the other side, suppliers that are looking to diversify into new areas or build new products suddenly realize that, oh, we actually don't need to add new capabilities to serve these markets. We just need to slightly tweak how we're doing things and what we're operating on. And all of a sudden, we're serving, not 4 markets, but 10 markets. And isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is cool. And we're at time, you guys. I just want to, share with everybody how solid Petra and Nikhil are, and how willing they are to collaborate. And so same thing goes for me and our operations director, David Van Sicklin. Our main intent is to be good partners, with Reimagine and help advance this regional action plan. And so that takes teamwork to do that, interaction to do it. And we're excited for the rest of today, but also in helping to co-create the kind of regional muscle that can really showcase how this bottom-up regional approach can work, deserves more investment from all of the different public, private, and nonprofit stakeholders at every level. So Petra Mitchell, Nikhil Calathil, thank you so much for being on this panel. And Molly, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Bear with me just a minute. I'm gonna get my screen share back working. So give me just a second. But so we're actually gonna do a couple more Mentimeter questions. So we're not going to have like a proper Q&A, but if you have any, questions, I think we've been addressing most of them in the chat. But if you have any questions or comments while we're doing the Mentimeter poll, feel free to continue.
Well, that's a new one. We lost Molly, everybody. That's okay. I have all of her files. Well, I will say it if y'all have any questions for our wonderful panelists. Absolutely share those in the chat, and they can also come off mute to share those. We're going to ask you some questions. We're going to have 360 questions happening right now.
Oh, geez, yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can. I don't know where you went, but I went ahead and we always say that technology is really helpful till it isn't. So yeah, as we have a question from Deborah that's just, what are the biggest barriers to policy in the manufacturing space today? So if folks want to, any of our panelists kind of want to address that, even as folks are filling out the Menti panel, that's certainly welcome. And then Molly, I'll go ahead and continue screen sharing, but you can take over from here.
Well, I would jump in there. It's the inconsistency of support from all, from critical ecosystem stakeholders. So, the federal government, we've had some progress. Steve was referring to this, but these have been intermittent interventions to help this bottom-up approach, make some progress, but we need that to be sustained. But states ought to be leaning into this, and some states are around the country. State governments are leaning into this. Philanthropy needs to be leaning into this. So that's a a barrier. That's why I dropped the reference to the new national strategy for advanced manufacturing and how we can give input into it. And so it's a big question, lots of elements to that, but that's what I'd say generally. I don't know if
Yeah,
Petra
Matt,
or Nick
I'll
want
add
to
to that
take.
that I
Yeah,
think that
please.
there's a need for local customization for policy here. I think in a lot of other areas, national policy works, and there might be a one-size-fits-all solution to certain problems. When we think about grid expansion, we need to build new transmission lines, and we need to build new power generation and stuff like that. These are, regulation issues and planning issues that are nuanced in different regions, but overall might have similar solutions across areas. When we think about manufacturing, each of the different regions that we have in America are very unique, have their own individual strengths and weaknesses, and also have their own different ways of running their economies. In certain areas, you'll have a much more university-led economy. In other areas, you'll have a much more state economic development-led economy. And policy needs to be able to take into account that local variation and that local differences. I think so much of our approach is how do we build Silicon Valley elsewhere? And that's not the answer. We're not going to be able to replicate Silicon Valley in other regions necessarily, nor do we necessarily want to replicate Silicon Valley in other regions. I think the answer is to really build on what are the existing strengths and assets that we have in existing areas, in places like Appalachia, and then do something new with that and do something that isn't done before. Again, when we look at the history of US manufacturing, one of the stories that I love is how did Arizona become a manufacturing powerhouse when it's in the middle of nowhere? It doesn't really have water. It doesn't, it was a remote location. And it was because there was an intentional effort by the government to invest in this area as a diversification strategy away from regions like Chicago and the coastal areas. And it was a concentrated multi-year, multi-stakeholder effort that then has created an extremely dynamic and effective manufacturing economy.
Thank you both so much for answering that. And we've got really great answers coming in on this question here. So I did just want to highlight there was definitely a lot around workforce and the people that are here, and infrastructure, the manufacturing strengths that are present. But yeah, maybe for the sake of time, we can't actually go to the next question. We'll hear some more from you. So the next question is, how do we ensure the future of manufacturing in Appalachia is more sustainable and equitable? And yeah, apologies to everyone. Thanks for bearing with me. I don't think my Zoom has misbehaved this much in a really long time. So sorry about that. Hopefully if
Petra,
I try
what's your
sharing.
Oh,
Go ahead. No, please.
Oh, I was just going to see, ask if Petra has a take on this question. In the breakout session, we did talk a little bit about the community benefits, right? That as we, build new industries or adapt existing capabilities, doing it in a way that lifts the people, their families, and communities is critical. That's why having this sustainable development as the North Star and getting at what the Chips and Science Act says is the new national, global and geostrategic challenges that includes, what some economists are calling it the K-shaped economy, right? Where 20% of people are rising in this country and 80% are really, really struggling. We need to create, systems, and manufacturing is a critical part of that has a growing, standard of living for all of our people. So Petra, how do you think about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Matt. It's really the workforce where I think the community benefit can really be the strongest. Manufacturing today has a lot of job openings, and yet people still don't realize that. So in southwestern Pennsylvania, we have over 4,000 workforce job openings in what we're calling or what are called, career and technical type jobs. So these are entry level to middle skill production jobs, and that's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And like we talked about, the multiplier effect is even above and beyond that. So I think that's the biggest thing we need to work on right now is how do we get people more aware of manufacturing opportunities, skilled for those opportunities, and on that career pathway that, can be very viable for them for the long term and for the communities in which they live.
And I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that, nationally, and I don't know how this lines up in Appalachia, but of our 244,000 manufacturers across the country, and Petra aptly recognized that almost all of those are small and medium-sized enterprises. Many of them are owned by aging out owners, and it provides an opportunity for employee ownership and other ownership forms for the new 21st century, era of manufacturers. So that could be an exciting opportunity for Appalachia to look at, to showcase for the rest of the country.
So we are going to get ready in just a second here to move into our breakouts. I realized that when I left, when Zoom kicked me out, it redid the breakout room, so I just fixed it. Some people might not be pre-assigned though, so we'll probably just have to get everyone moved over. But yeah, I think we will get ready to move us into breakout sessions just so we don't fall too behind. So Dana, you should be able to go to the next slide, and then we can switch screen sharing if we need to. So as a reminder, we are happy to move you into a breakout room if you'd like. Please just drop in the chat which room you'd like to be moved to. But you also should be able to click the little breakout room box at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar and pick your room. So again, apologies if I was not able to pre-assign anyone because I had done that and then it kicked me out and redid it all. So we will start moving folks over, and in the meantime, you should also feel free to get yourself moved over. The breakout sessions aren't going to start for another 3 minutes, so you should have time to get yourself moved in. And then we will be coming back here as a main group once more for just 15 minutes or so to wrap up. So let me start getting folks moved over. Oh no, see, whoever just opened up the rooms, I think you messed it up because now it's back to the old names again. Bummer. Yeah, I think should I close all the rooms and redo them again? I don't know who opened up the rooms, but we weren't ready for that yet.
Yeah, I think we have too many co-hosts. So I think that's what happened. So go ahead and close and reopen. And then if you are a co-host, don't touch anything. And until we tell you to. I apologize.
Yeah, and unfortunately we have to wait a minute to rename them now because Zoom's silly. But you do see the ones up on the screen is what they're going to be. So feel free to keep putting in the chat where you want us to move you. And as soon as we get the breakout rooms back fixed, we will get you moved over.
And since we have an extra minute, I don't want to put our panelists on the spot, but if there were any questions or reflections that you didn't have a chance to share, obviously there's so much wisdom in the room. So, feel free to shout that out just as we're moving through the technical aspects here. So,
I'll just note, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Would be super happy to talk more and welcome opportunities for collaboration.
I think one of the things that's so great about Appalachia is the scale. It's just smaller. And so you see someone interesting on these webinars. And I think in so many places in the world, you would never have the opportunity to actually speak to them unless you were like important. But I always say that we have, there's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but we only have 1 degree. We're all just maybe 1 or 2 degrees separated in the region, and that's one of the things I love about it here. So,
the manufacturing room got returned here.
Yeah, everything was messed up, so we're redoing it now. So now we will move folks to what room they want to be in. And I will try to do some of the pre-assigning of folks I know should be in either room, and then just we'll start looking in the chat to.
Are
put
you ready
folks-
for me to manually move people, Molly?
We should be. I'm going to try opening up the rooms and see if it works this time.
Okay.
Yes, that worked. Okay,
Okay.
cool. So now we should be set.
And now I will start manually moving folks. Putting your die on the screen while is fine, but it does not help me get you moved. You do have to comment in the chat because I'm focused. I can't see both at the same time. I can only do 5 things at once. as I like to
You
say.
also can move yourself into the breakout room now. So if you click the little breakout room square, I see a lot of you are starting to move yourself over. I'm moving you now, Wendy. You should get the prompt. Rika, I will move you now.
All of the breakout rooms will be recorded, and we'll have notes for folks. So yeah, you will have the opportunity to get those.
Yeah, and apologies for all of this. This was all done and then it got all messed up. So sorry. I'm surprised it redid the rooms when Zoom kicked me out for some reason.
So I think I've got most people. Some folks are farther back, but if you have put your information in the chat and you're not in your preferred room yet, go ahead and redo that for us and we'll get you moved. You'll have to just tell us twice if you don't mind. And if you've already told us twice and you're still here, then something went wrong and we'll need to fix your tech. So just let us know about that too. And it's a small room now. There's only 14 folks left. So I'm going to hop, but feel free to come up.
You're good. Thank you.
I was just going to say, anybody having trouble, just hop off mute and holler at us. And I'm trying to figure out where I was supposed to be. There we go. All right. I'll see y'all.
Thanks, Dana. I'm going to attempt to reshare this screen here. Oops. Okay. So for folks that are still here with us, you should see up on the screen right now the options. Please just put in the chat if we have not moved you and you're still looking to get moved.